Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Weights and Wealth. This is our second episode. I am your host, Nick, here with my co-host, Ted.
We'd like to thank our three listeners, my mom, Nick's mom, and my sister, for sticking with us as we try to improve here in the second episode.
Yeah, and I also got my brother to listen to us, so I think we're at a grand
All right.
total of 4 listeners now.
Let's get some exponential growth off of that and just keep going here. We listened to the first episode and we were really surprised by the quality of the audio that we're bringing here from Weights and Wealth, which isn't that surprising considering we pretty much spent all of our money on the sound equipment, hence no backdrop. It's actually kind of funny because this episode is going to be on planning, which on the wealth side will be about budgets, and on the weight side will be about having a program in the gym. So unlike what we did here at Weights and Wealth, have a budget, right? Have a plan.
And you have to plan, yes. So I'll be talking about our budget today. One of the things that I always heard growing up is that failing to plan means that you're planning to fail. If you don't create a plan, you won't get to where you want to go. And in creating your plan, you should really start with where you want to be in the future and then create actionable steps to get there from where you are now.
Just like back planning when you're looking at your schedule and you have to be somewhere at 5 o'clock and just kind of plan backwards. Is that more or less how you plan with a budget?
Yep. Yeah. So for your time, if you have certain obligations that you have to be at, then you can plan, your workout around that, any reading time, stuff like that. So the first step to really creating your budget is to establish how much money you want to save every month. A great way to do that is through an allotment. You can have money that is direct deposited into your checking account, and you can siphon some of that off into a savings account.
Good word, siphon.
Yeah, I have my thesaurus right here. So once you establish how much money you want to save every month, you start to look at your fixed costs. Your fixed costs tend to be your largest expenses, and they're things that you need to survive. So, rent, car payment, food, utilities, stuff like that.
Some of it's contractually obligated in loans and payments, like your mortgage or your rent that you're leasing or your car payment. Some of that stuff exactly how much it's going to cost, so that makes it pretty easy to subtract out of your budget ahead of time.
Right. Yeah, that stuff is pretty easy to budget for, and once you have all of that stuff nailed down, you can really get into your discretionary spending and how much money you have left over.
Sorry for that cut. Our camera on top of a cardboard box fell. Nick, please continue.
So anyway, I was talking about, getting to your incidentals and your other miscellaneous spending, entertainment, clothes, stuff like that. And this is really the area of your budget where you can really find ways to cut back. And now once you have your budget in line, it's really important to actually track your expenses. I like to do this in an Excel spreadsheet. I like taking my bank statements, categorizing all my expenses, and then comparing my budget to what I actually spent.
How long does that usually take you? Do you do it monthly?
I usually do it monthly. Yeah, I'll do it at the end of every month.
Okay.
You can do it every day, but that can be a little bit tedious. Or, some people might want to do it weekly. It just lessens the amount of time that you have to spend when you do go through your bank statements to figure out what you spent your money on.
Sure.
And then it's also important to look at how much you're spending and where, so you can find ways to cut back and eventually save more money.
Yeah, I mean, that's like looking at the subscriptions that you're paying for and seeing things that you forgot about, right? Like if you don't have a budget, you might not even notice that you're paying for these things that you aren't using. So your budget kind of plays like defense in that way, but then also offense in like knowing that you're transferring a certain amount into savings or investing, right?
Right. Yeah. And it might make you realize that you're spending money in some areas that you had no idea you were spending that much. If you're spending $100 a month going out to buy coffee, or, at
Starbucks getting expensive with inflation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any like rules of thumb or general rules people should consider as far as how much they're spending on certain things? Obviously, it's going to be different for everyone, but
Yeah, so for your housing, it's generally recommended that you don't spend any more than 30% of your gross income. But that obviously depends on where you're at in life. If you're single, married with kids, it just varies, which is why personal finance is personal. So if you're single, it's really easy, or I wouldn't say easy, but it's much easier than if you're married to save money on your housing. You can get a roommate. You can find somebody who has an extra room in their house and rent their house,
Sure.
or rent a room in their house.
Buy duplex and house hack, just like that person was doing to you.
We would, yeah.
It's the other side of the coin, I guess. But,
Yeah. And then when it comes to your car, it's recommended that you follow the 24-10 rule. You put a 20% down payment on your car. Your car payment's no more than 4 years, and it doesn't exceed 10% of your monthly gross income.
Cars are weird too because they're so expensive, and your car payment can be a huge chunk of your monthly budget, but they depreciate immediately when you start
as soon
driving
as you
them.
drive it off the lot, it's worth a good chunk less than what you just paid for it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And for a lot of people, this can be an absolute money hole. I don't know, Ted. You're in the Army. Do you have any experience with people making bad car decisions?
It's the classic private that gets a Charger at 30% interest and just has these crazy payments. But yeah, I think a lot of people our age are kind of irresponsible with car payments. Is that, I mean, I don't know how much a month people are paying right now, but I know a lot of friends that have either like a car or a car and a motorcycle that's just taking up like $800, $900 a month, and it's like, whoa, what are you doing there?
Yeah,
let's be practical with our spending here. Because I mean, a couple $100 a month that you put into savings or investments, that makes a huge difference, especially at our age when you're starting off early with the compounding interest that you get off putting an extra $100 a month into your investments.
Yeah, you would be really surprised how much, just $100 a month can make a difference in the long term over the course of 30 years. I don't know exactly what it turns into, but I mean, it's just thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's the allotments that you were talking about earlier. Like if you can make a budget and then just have that $100 that you don't need to spend go into your savings or in your investments, in the long run, that turns out to be a ton of money. And if you don't have those allotments or some sort of system or plan in place, you're probably going to fail. You're planning to fail.
Right.
And like, you're going to spend that money if it's just sitting in your checking account, right? I mean, I feel like the average person just looks at their checking account and says, oh, I have XYZ dollars. And they think they have that much money they can spend. I don't know. It's weird. It's a very different mindset, right?
Right. Or if you have a credit card and don't even look at how much is in your checking account.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Is there anything else people should know about budgeting and creating a budget? Maybe places to start, things that they can use if they're not proficient with Excel?
Well, one place to start is we have a great budget template on our website, waitsandwealth.com. I encourage you all to check that out.
Do we have that yet, or is it coming in February?
It will be coming around the time this podcast is released.
All right.
So just so you all know, we record these a few weeks in advance.
We will have a budget Excel template on our website at some point coming up. So check back at our website or follow our social media so you know when that goes up.
Yeah, and we'll put an announcement out so you all know.
On the weights side of failing to plan is planning to fail. Prior planning prevents poor performance. Make a plan. On the weights side, having a program for your workouts is really, really crucial. So if you don't have a plan when you go to work out, you're exercising or you're working out. If you have a goal that you want to hit, you want to have a plan, because then you're training to hit that goal, and you're much more likely to be successful. So if you're looking to get stronger or build muscle, that's probably our target audience. Guys are usually looking to build muscle and get stronger. I know that's where Nick and I came from when we started lifting 10 years ago. We were really scrawny guys in high school, so we were both trying to get bigger. The name of the game is progressive overload. You want to add weight on the bar over time. You want to do more reps, more sets. You want to change the tempo and add pauses and do longer eccentrics on your reps, which is the negative portion of the rep. There's a lot of different ways where you can progressively overload the tension that you're placing on your muscle, but you need to make sure that you are increasing that tension you're placing on your muscles over time. In the gym, you see a lot of people that do the same thing all the time. You see that guy that does his same circuit of 4 exercises month after month after month, and then he wonders why he's not getting bigger. It's like, dude, you can't just do the same workout for a year and expect to get that much bigger. You got to progressively overload it, right? And then I think the other thing that we see at the gym a lot is people that have no plan, right? They go over to the pec deck and do some sets, and then they kind of look around and they see the dumbbell bench and go over there, and then it's kind of crowded. So then they walk over to the cables. Like, people that just are meandering around, like, it's not to make fun of them, but it's to say, like, hey, yo, if you had a plan, you would be progressing over time, and maybe not having a plan is holding you back a lot. Do you agree? Or
Yeah. So what are some ways that people can either, develop their own plan, or where should they look to make a plan?
Developing your plan, like a program in the beginning, is going to be really difficult for a lot of beginner lifters. So when I was still a beginner lifter 2-3 years into lifting and had still not even really gotten my newbie gains, Nick started helping me actually way back in the day. Gave me a program. What was it called? Ensons. That's a classic program.
It was 6 days a week though, so it was a
there
program.
There were problems with this program, but at least I was on a program for the first time in my life, and I saw a lot of good gains from it. Not that I would recommend you use that specific program, but that just shows the value of having a program, right? So, but red flags, if you see programs online, because that's a way that a lot of people are going to get their programs. They're going to buy a program online. Red flags are going to be, one, like we just hit with that Ensons program, if it's just way too much volume. People have this mindset, especially with exercising and working out, that more is better. More is not better. Better is better, right? So sometimes less is more. If you're working out 6 days a week, 12 sets, murdering, like, per exercise, 12 exercises per day, just like murdering yourself in the gym, you're doing too much, and you would make way better progress by doing less. I saw this all the time as a trainer. People would come into the gym back when I worked inside of a gym. People would come in, I'd give them like a free consultation session, and when they got their membership, and like I had this one guy in particular that showed me the program he had been running from some like influencer, and it was literally 6 days a week and like 12 or 13 exercises a day. I was like, dude, no wonder you're not seeing progress. This is way too much volume. Like, it, to the average person, it might look like it's a lot of work, so it's good, but it's just way too much. Did you ever play around with the frequency of how many times you lifted per week?
Yeah, so especially when I started lifting, it's something I really enjoy doing, so I like to go to the gym as much as I can.
Yeah.
And for a while I was going, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week.
Just because you
And
love it. That's a lot
just
of us. Like, we just love being in the gym, you
right,
know?
it's just fun
Yeah.
moving heavy weight around. But you definitely see diminishing returns on that, and you also open yourself up to injury. I know
Oh,
I've
for
had
sure.
my fair share of shoulder pain, back
Mhm.
pain. I mean, that's a combination of bad form when I just started out,
Yeah.
but also overworking my body. Your
Sure.
body can only take so much.
And as we look at like nagging injuries that come up like that, I think a big part of that also is another red flag would be a program that doesn't periodize or change phases at all. So if you're looking at an online program and it stays in the 8 to 12 rep range the entire time, probably a red flag. You want your programs to change phases. You want them to switch rep ranges. You want to go from an 8 to 12 to maybe 6 weeks later, you're doing low reps. I know you and I both kind of live in that low rep range. That's where we like to be. But when we get out of that and then come back, that's when we see our best gains. At least for me, I think you can
Right.
agree with
Yeah.
that
I
too.
I, I love staying and lifting in the 1 to 3 rep range
Yeah,
just because
so
it's
much
fun
fun.
moving heavyweight.
Deadlifting heavyweight.
And I often stay in that phase for a little bit too long.
Yep.
But once I switch to, an 8 rep range or lower rests, I see my lifts start to shoot up.
Yeah, there's so many things you can manipulate, so many factors, and if you don't change any of them and you stay in the same phase the entire time, your body adapts. And if we can change the signal and move into a new rep range and then come back, we can get stronger even though we were doing something else. So you want your program to change rep ranges, change exercises every once in a while. You don't want to do different exercises every day. Muscle confusion, garbage. Like you want to be on a program that's, again, progressively overloading the same thing for a period of time and then changing. So two red flags are the program that's just way too much volume, a professional bodybuilder program. Dude, you're not a professional bodybuilder. Like everyone that's listening to this, right? You can't handle that much volume. So you need recovery. You need your rest days. You don't need to be in the gym for 2 hours going beast mode every day. Like, that's another thing that needs to be periodized is your intensity. Like, it's fun to lift really heavy weight and go ham, but what's more fun is to actually progress by not going 100% every day.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned these different phases. How long are these phases differently? Like how often do you switch from going from like a powerlifting routine to a bodybuilding
Sure.
routine to
It depends on what your goals are. It depends on what you've done, your training age. Your training age means how long you've been lifting. So your age in the gym, right? So we're approaching a decade, I guess, with
Mhm.
our training age. But if you're new to the gym, switching your rep range every 6 weeks, I would say is probably a good idea. And then I typically will change every 4 weeks since I've been lifting for a while. But there are times if I'm going on like a full powerlifting block where I'm living in that low rep range a little bit longer. But there's different things if whether you're talking about your rep range or your exercises. For exercises, generally, I'll play with the same set of exercises over like a 12-week period. And then my next block of lifting for 12 weeks, I'll play with like a different set of exercises. So depending on what you're phasing in and out, will be a different duration. But if we look back at those red flags, another red flag would be a workout program that has no rest. The HIIT workouts, the circuit HIIT workouts with no rest. You're doing cardio. You're not lifting if there's no rest.
And what are the problems with not really having a rest? Like,
so if you're not having a rest period at all, you're not allowing your muscle and the cells in your muscle to basically hit the refresh button on their energy sources, whether that's the phosphocreatine. So if you go back to your high school biology class, you have ATP in your cells. Think of the T as tri. So you got 3 phosphate molecules in the ATP. That goes down to ADP as it gives the phosphate molecule away for energy as it's used. So when you go from ATP to ADP, ADP turns back into ATP with the assistance of creatine, which is why everyone should supplement with creatine. I hope that high school biology lesson chemistry does for people and it's not too confusing. But whether it's the creatine they're using on like a really, really short burst of energy or the glucose, just letting your muscles gain that energy back in between your sets, letting them fill with oxygen and having the blood flow come out and move the waste products out from the cells. That's what you're looking for in between your rest periods. So there's a study that came out that showed 3-minute rest periods built more muscle than 1-minute rest periods. But everyone that's new to the gym does like 30-second rest periods. But then if you look at the powerlifter guys in the corner,
that's me
sitting down for 4 or 5 minutes. Like you want to take your rest, and especially the heavier or more intense that your sets are, you want to make sure that you're resting. So if a program is like all circuit based, if you're trying to build muscle, that's not the program for you. That's definitely a red flag.
Yeah, for me, especially on my compound lifts, I will rest 4, 5, sometimes more minutes between each set. And I have found that to be so much more valuable than doing, 2-minute rests.
Absolutely.
I do like to mix in those shorter rests.
Yeah, again, like you want to
progressively
phase and move throughout these phases. You want to do that phase where you're doing 1.5 minute rest and getting a really good pump, right? So it's just like, what's the goal of that phase? And like it's tough because this is a lot of time really hard for newbies to get their head around and like grasp all these different concepts and put them together. But that's why you get a coach. You get someone you trust. And when I say someone you trust, that's not the guy that looks shredded on Instagram. It's someone that actually puts out good information and has coached people, especially people in person. Another red flag would be if you come across someone online that does online coaching that has never coached in person. That to me is always a giant red flag. Like if someone hasn't coached people in person in a gym, that's so critical as a trainer for like baseline of experience. I don't trust coaches that coach online that have never coached in a gym. So yeah, that's a very easy way to vet someone. It's not going to be perfect, but that's a pretty easy way to vet at least a large group of people out.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of these big time social media influencers, they're either on some sort of gear and they're just making entertaining content.
Yeah,
entertaining content.
Also, that's another thing. Like content creation takes time. This podcast, like the amount of takes that we had with voice cracks and confusion in the first episode. So like if you have someone that's got millions of followers on TikTok or Instagram, it's probably not the best person to buy a program from because they're probably solely focused on content creation. If you look at the best coaches I know, they don't have the most followers because they're focused on coaching people, not creating content. If you look at EricBugera, BUGERA on Instagram, it's an incredible example of a really, really good coach that doesn't put out tons of his own like videos and content because he's focused on educating and coaching people. So that's just like another red flag would be if they have a ton of followers. I think that's a bad thing.
I mean, that's what Ted's Lift Health does, right? You
That's
just
what
have
Ted's Lift Health does.
very educational videos. I think you're
Educational
almost
content.
at 1,000 followers, almost.
Close. Yep. But yeah, I guess red flags that we went over would be way too much volume. Someone that coaches hundreds or thousands of people, probably just giving everyone the same cookie cutter garbage. There are people that have programs out there for the general person that have good programming, like the Mind Pump guys, but that's not the norm, I would say, in this space. Some of the other red flags we went over are no rest periods, no change in scheme, no phasing, and workouts that are just infinitely long. It's the same as the volume, I guess. But those would be my biggest red flags. Other than that, it's kind of up to you to try to find a coach that you can trust. We'll go into common online programs that we have done before. We'll do an episode on this. Common online programs that we've done that you can get out there for free and how to modify them to make them better and not have them be crazy German volume, way too much volume programs. Like there are programs out there similar to that. Like we talked about the NSUNS program. There are programs out there that have decent programming in them that you can adapt and make better. And we'll do an episode on that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps up this podcast on planning to fail.
Yeah.
No.
Make sure you plan, guys. Yeah. Nick will take us out with our social media accounts that we have here. Since we're so spectacular at this business thing, all of our pages have different names. It was really hard to get the same name, but Nick will give you the name for each social media account.
Yeah, so if you want to follow us on Instagram, Weights and Wealth Podcast, Twitter, Podcast W&W. Our website is weightsandwealth.com. Our TikTok is just Weights and Wealth, and our YouTube is Weights_Wealth.
All right. And if you can't find one of those, but it is your preferred platform, but you find us on another one, just reach out to us and we will help you find them. If you had any thoughts on this episode, how we did, how we can improve, please let us know. We don't shy away from constructive criticism, and we're just trying to get better over time here and give you guys the best quality advice that we can. Thanks for being with us this week.